there with all the information, can correlate with all the facts, crack a joke at the same time, connect with you. You really need that. That's a question for everybody to answer. Maybe, technology is going to be or a huge change maker in the world of education when we talk about technology for education, way of looking at it, this is about online teaching and learning. So now we've got an element, we've got Zoom as well, and when COVID happened, we could teach online. So therefore, we are kind of tech savvy when it comes to the education of tomorrow, but really ask yourself that sitting in front of that Zoom is really one big change, of course, is going to be technology. Get the future of work. A lot of statistics are over today. 375 million people need to shift their occupations in less than 10 years from study. 365 new jobs with new skills. So now the question is that as an education ecosystem, how many of our courses are really oriented towards 365 million new jobs for which the skills don't exist? What's going to happen to the students who have already graduated from our universities, for which there are jobs that are there? As an education ecosystem, what are we really going to do about it? We really have to start to follow them back and give them the new skills that they need for the future. In many countries of the Western world, longevity of human beings is going to create a huge problem on, of course, the social system. But also the fact is that when your average life expectancy is about 75 years, 80 years and beyond, the skill that you are learning at the age of 20 or the qualification, the degree that you are going to be getting at that age, even thinking that for the next 30 years or 50 years will be relevant, living in a food paradise. So these are some big changes that are already happening. Automation and technology is driving the future of work in a lot of ways. But also some of the skill sets that may be needed in the future are perhaps not there in the classroom of today. We spoke about life skills being a very strong and the future when you are working in a hybrid environment, when you've got your team scattered all across the world and you don't have a very face-to-face connect, how do you really develop the experience of working with teams all across the world, across different cultures? What's our education system about? It's really not about resume building anymore. Fancy looking resume for you, and then you go out and ask your resume interview and you can say you're assured. These kind of changes. Interesting I find about this all of this is that one thing I'm very sure is that by the time they hit, I'll be retired. Most of you, but some of you, especially the younger one and all of the younger faculty, you guys can be without a job. So please stay careful here. In the School of Media, a lot of young people, right? So we need to do that. This is really interesting, and these kind of YouTube's videos, and there's a lot of conversation around metaverse, and there's that whole belief on one side that everything is going to be metaverse, and then there is strong belief on the other side that this is another fad. But whatever it is a reality. Yesterday we were having one conversation, and one of my colleagues pointed out, Rahul, where are you? Whatever it is, this is a reality. We made a very intelligent point, very rarely about the fact that when you're talking about education in the metaverse, it's actually going to the old way of teaching and learning. Where you're talking about a marketplace, you actually go to the market and you explain, ye haat hai, ye dukaan hai, this is how retailing happens. This is exactly what happens in the metaverse and learning. Is that you are just creating about a marketplace. Virtual world will seem so real. So the pedagogical impact of that is absolutely immense. When I've been working on metaverse with my team for a while now, and forget about everything else, with avatars in retail and whatever is going to happen. In education, I think the real impact is the immersiveness of learning that happens while this conversation is happening, an absolutely high level of engagement that happens. So therefore, we can't kind of wish it away. There are multiple universities across the world who are creating their campuses on the metaverse and giving a real life experience. Berkeley did their convocation on the metaverse. Some of it was driven by COVID, but the reality is it's happening. I mean, look at this video. It's a very small illustration of. Okay, play the video. So of course, I mean, as you saw, this is just one small example of how universities are now going to be metaversed, and the experience that we are giving to the students is going to be really completely different. Of course, it opens up a new set of challenges as a society for us. These multiple identities, your avatars doing what they are doing. What is the social impact of that? How the world is going to react to something like this, and will life just be then that one headset that one wears and you are transported to a different world? So it's going to create a lot of complex problems for us as a society, and I think it becomes the responsibility of the entire educational ecosystem to deal with those challenges. How do we deal with the legal implications of what's going to happen in the metaverse? Whose jurisdiction actually is that? Now there are parcels of land being bought and sold in the metaverse. So who actually owns that space? And if you encroach on my land, what's going to happen? Now these are some of the challenges which perhaps the legal education system has to kind of deal with. And for us also to look at how do we want to create a different experience for the students. So every time when I show a video like this, if we talk about the metaverse, so all the those in the age group of, let's say, 30 plus are kind of awed and wonderstruck by Alice in Wonderland. But all those who are our students, that 18 to 25 age group, they always come and tell us that they have seen this before. So they know exactly how this is going to be operating. So they are already in that. We did a little bit of a survey with our students to find what they are doing in the metaverse. So they were already doing some exchange, some commerce was happening, some cryptocurrencies was being bought and sold. They were creating their own networks of doing things. I'm also part of a design school, and there we figured out that there is so many designs that are being created purely based on the AI technology that's out there. And all you need to do is to create a design is to key in the right words. So we're hosting an event in December. It's an international conference, and I want to carry some gifts from India, which are like typical Indian. So we settled on a scarf and a stole or something like that. And now, of course, we need to get it designed. Now, conventional way would be go to a designer, give a brief, and all of that happens. But this is actually now fairly simple now. My AI expert has asked me for certain keywords. So I gave them the keywords: Indian motifs, kalamkari, pulkari, katha, vibrant colors, and all of it And there you go. You've got hundreds of designs to choose from. So now you can pick within seconds that this is what the design that I want. Now, if this is how it's going to be, and anyone can actually do it after a while, then how do we look at what the designers are going to be doing? This is the power of technology and metaverse, huge change. This is another very interesting slide on the scale of what is needed in the future. Let's take the example of India. Today we've got about 37.5 million students who are engaged in higher education, and look at what's going to happen. By 2035, this number is going to be 92 million. This is a very conservative estimate. We've got about 1,000 universities which are catering to 37 million, which means that if we just allow things to be the way they are, we'll need twice the number of everything what we have right now. Maybe even more, 2 or 3 times the number of universities, 2 or 3 times the number of teachers, that infrastructure, that investment that we need. That's the scale of what this country needs. We are extremely proud of the demographic dividend that we have right now, the youngest country in the world. But if the youngest country does not have the means to educate itself for the scale of the educational ecosystem, we are headed for a complete anarchy. Because you don't have education, you don't have jobs, you've got young people, you know what happens then. Therefore, the scale of what is going to happen and what is needed is also immense. So when we kind of talk about the ways in which education access is created, and we kind of brush it aside, that this is not serious education, what you have to also understand that where is the alternative? How many new universities would have come in the last 1 year? Ram, 20, 30? About 15, 20, that's it. And I don't know, what is the size of these universities? In India, universities are typically very small. We don't have any university which will probably be having 50,000 students or 100,000 students out there. And then the whole debate of excellence versus quality, excellence versus scale, or scale versus quality, is absolutely a moot point, because where is the alternative? है कहाँ आपके पास इतनी colleges or universities करने को? So if we don't scale up, and if we don't dramatically scale up, we are headed for a very difficult time. What's also happening in the world of education is that a lot of interesting models are now kind of emerging. Because एक चीज़ तो है कि हमारा तो belief है कि 150 साल से whatever we have done, अब हम तो बदलेंगे नहीं. But if you don't, then options will be created, alternatives will be created, and they are already happening in the world. These are some examples. So let's take it MIT. So you may be aware of the open courseware that they have. So everything that they have, all the intellectual property they have, the content that they have, is open source now. Anybody can go and access through it. They will not give you an MIT qualification or a degree or a piece of paper, but they are providing access to that knowledge. Now, if education equal to knowledge, education not equal to degree, then this is a perfect solution. That MIT level content that you are getting at what you have, basically without paying anything. Why do you need to go anywhere else? Interesting model. Skills over degree. There are so many companies in the last few years that have made a public statement that they don't want to look at the degree, they just want to look at the skills that you have. So IBM, Deloitte, EY, and these are like big employers. This is what they are now really looking for. So the piece of paper is, in some ways losing its relevance. The commute MBA, this is very interesting. So this is this university in Kuala Lumpur, the University of Kuala Lumpur, I believe. So they've got their entire MBA into extremely small, 2.5 to 3 minute kind of modules. And the whole idea is that when you are commuting, you can just kind of go through it while all the world is moving around you. You have that access. In 3 minutes, they're telling you what you're supposed to be doing. Now, contrast it to our typical lecture or a class of, hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. Link it to the engagement level of the student, which is about 2-3 minutes. And then you see what we are really doing versus what's really available out there. So if there are a number of students who are actually wanting to be part of a community like this, then there is something that is kind of seriously happening in these bits and pieces, and it's just a question of all coming together. KAIST Kenya is another example. So this is a Korean university called KAIST. They wanted to open up a campus in Kenya, and the Kenyan government approached them. Now, of course, they will be setting up this campus. That's the way, a traditional way of doing it. Buy the land, building, hire the teachers, and do whatever you can do. But what they have done is, they have opened this entire campus on the metaverse. So there is not a single movement of a person from Korea to wherever. The entire content is there, the classrooms are held, and students all across Kenya can access it, and eventually, you can have it all across the world that the students can access it without moving out of their house, because commute across cities was a huge problem identified in Kenya. So when you're looking at access, there are these models that are emerging. Subscription-based learning is another new thing which is happening, that you subscribe to a university or a education system, and you have the entire content that is available to you for a small fee, pretty much like the way Netflix works. So if you are having that access, then and then you have metaverse where you can do these interesting things. You've got MIT with you, and there are companies that don't value that piece of paper. Then what's going to happen to all of us and what's going to happen to universities is a question mark. The learner, I think that's another big change which is happening. Perhaps this always was a change that was happening through the ages. Something says time's up. What's in it for me? That's what WIFM really stands for. So the students is kind of really actively asking this question, that what am I getting? The value for money question comes. So somewhere when we are in a room full of academics, the value for money is something everybody wants to keep aside, and let's kind of not talk about it, because what we are doing is valueless and priceless. But that's not the point, because your consumer, the student that is there, is asking this question. During COVID, a lot of these debates started to happen, that why do universities in America charge so much for education when they've got their coffers filled with millions of dollars that are coming from everywhere, and that's a very valid question. So your learners are digital natives. As I said, they know about metaverse, they know about everything. The K-12 system is kind of, I believe, a little more modernized. But if we therefore don't change our system, so our pedagogical system, it's no longer that conventional way of teaching and learning, that I'm going to be the knowledge disseminator here because I know more than you, because the fact is I don't know more than you. There are so many places where content is available, information is available, and the learner is a very smart learner seeking that value. So that's going to be one big change which is going to be happening in the classroom. Since my time is up, I'm going to try to move fast. The role of the teacher, because that's something we've kind of always discussed, and often what we all agreed and settled was the role as a mentor, because mentor is a nice word. It's got a safe tone to it, and it's got a decently big halo around it and a sufficiently large pedestal. So that was kind of a unique consensus amongst all the educationalists, that mentor is a good word. But reality is that you also need entertainers in the classroom. If you don't have entertainers, you will not be able to engage with your student in the classroom. You also need people who understand technology very well, not just a brief understanding of how it works, and it is not restricted to the computer science teachers. It's also there across all domains, that if a teacher who's teaching law does not kind of really understand how law is going to be impacted with the impact of technology, it will be a very difficult conversation within the classroom. And I believe that the word co-learners, it's like you're also part of that learning process, rather than standing here and giving a lecture out there. This is a very significant change where I feel that as an educational ecosystem we have not been able to evolve. There is still kind of a certain aura about the way things are done, and still a lot of emphasis on things that were extremely relevant 100 years back, but things have kind of really changed now. How do we make our teachers entertainers? And the very thought itself is something which is going to kind of create so much dissonance in a room when you're having a conversation around it. But if your students are looking for something else, then the challenge would be that if our conventional education is run this way, there will be others who will be able to create more impactful things. And that is why you see a plethora of content which is available on the YouTube, where you can actually learn and do things in a certain way. My daughter did her schooling from a very good school, but they did not have a great math teacher. So her entire 4 years, from 9th to 12th, was actually free on the YouTube. Khan Academy and the others, and they do it in such an interesting and engaging way that you kind of just get the concept right. So somewhere I think as we design our programs for teachers, that's also something that we need to look at, that how do we make you a kind of a stand-up comic and also let you engage with what's happening in the classroom. This was a question asked, when Veera asked me this question, that what about the university of tomorrow? And I think this is where it is now. So what do we do? I don't think so that I'll be having all the answers today. I'm just going to be leaving you with a few thoughts and few provocations. Do we really need universities now? With the content that is available, companies not needing degrees, there are so many of the best universities opening up their doors to knowledge through the MIT or CW kind of programs. Do we really need universities? Are we equipped to meet the demand? Where are we going to get twice the number of teachers? Where are we going to get the infra which is needed? Education is supposed to be not for profit, is something which is fundamentally mentioned in our constitution. So if it is not for profit, government is not putting the money into education because they don't have the money. Who's going to put that money then? Who's going to be investing in the larger cause of education? So where is the scale going to come from? And if you're not going to provide that scale, there's going to be somebody out there, the Google of education, who's going to come and perhaps take it away from all of us. Degrees or skills? What do we need? In our country, BWalk is seen as something which is like one level lower than higher education, because I don't look the idea of this word higher there. But what is going to be needed? If the companies are looking for skills and attitude, whereas we are providing what we are calling it higher education, our students have a slightly bleaker future going ahead. So that's a question that hopefully we'll get some answers to. So will Lucy be the cool new prof in the classroom, the robot? And can we actually have so many of them in the classroom? And what Sunil was telling me, it will be a great place to be, because then at least all the teachers are listening to what he's saying. They can be programmed very well. They'll say yes sir to everything that's really happening, and they are not resisting change, and you get a consistency of education going there. Is it possible or not? And really, frankly, our metaversity is the future. This university I told you about, KAIST, they're setting up this metaversity for Kenya. The investment for them is roughly about $1 million in the metaverse real estate, whereas the actual reality investment they would have done would be close to about $70 to $100 million. So why can't we create a metaverse university and provide that solution? Is that possible? Is it doable? Is it going to happen or not? And how do we make education accessible? Finally, our entire education system of highly ranked and elitist university is based on this absurd notion of denying admission, because the prestige of your university is dependent on how many you deny access to. And how fundamentally flawed that idea is, that if the idea of education, the purpose of education is to provide access so there is a better tomorrow, here we are going to be denying access. 99%, 99.25% is the acceptance rate of universities in India, what happens to the average, mediocre student? Where does that student go? How do you create access? How do you make it more affordable? So these are, really some of the provocations. So hopefully you are provoked enough. So this is another activity for you, that how are you feeling now after looking at everything that I just shared? What's your feeling? So describe that feeling, whatever you are. कुछ लोग हैं जिनके जॉब्स खतरे में हैं, कुछ लोग हैं जिनके बच्चे अभी कॉलेज में जाने वाले हैं, कुछ लोग तो सोच रहे हैं पैदा ही ना करो अभी, कुछ अभी अनसर्टन है, थोड़ा और टाइम देख लेते हैं, एंड देन वील रियली फिगर आउट. टेक वाले आर वेरी हैप्पी बिकॉज उनका वन वे और द अदर जॉब भी सेफ है, सैलरी भी बढ़ने वाली है. स्केर्ड. We have a nice emoji here as well. Okay. Okay, but somebody has written that traditional way will stay, so all is not lost. All right, so 4, 5 participants tapping. Another 10 seconds? Yeah, okay. 30 seconds, okay, another 30 seconds. 30 seconds you have a chance to put, Suti, what are you thinking? Come on, get your feelings out there. She's thinking, yeah, she's very nervous that because I like this screen now, because there's no time's up thing out there, okay. Thoughtful, optimistic, anxious, worried, lost. I love this. There are 2 participants that are typing. If they type, 6 ho gaye. Okay, you get the picture, right? And this is pretty much what is really expected. We are nervous, scared, excited, intrigued, concerned, and we should be. Because what we are doing as a group here collectively is fundamental to the way the world would be many years from now. And this should be, in some ways, the number one concern of, I would say, the political leadership across the world as well. Because this is really what the future is, and if we do not make the changes that we have to make, if we don't accept what the reality is, and if we do not transform our way of thinking, it's quite possible that we will be left behind, and we don't really have a tomorrow as far as the current educational ecosystem is concerned. So with that, I leave you with these provocations, and I've just left it blank. You guys figure out what you want to be doing from this point onwards. Academicians are notorious for reflecting and thinking, so do all of that by all means, but please do end up doing something about it, because if you do not do what is expected now, our education is headed for something which is not the way we visualize it to be. So thank you everyone. Sorry I took a little more time.
We're going to keep you on stage.
Okay, lovely. I like the light.
If I get it right, what you're saying is you do what you have to do, but I don't know what you have to do right now.
Yes, kind of. You had so many do's in that, but yes.
It's for all of us rest to figure this out. So I'm saying you've put our jobs at threat. You've said we are heading into an anarchy. You said the student knows more than us. And then finally you say do, or you leave it with that. Give us the one word that you think we should start with before I call the next panel. Give us that one word. You've been playing one word games with everybody else. Now you give us one word. Where do we start?
Disrupt. Disrupt and revolutionize what you are doing, because that's the way it is. And maybe there's a better word than disrupt, which is destruction. Start the destruction now.
Yeah.
Destroying your beliefs, the thoughts that you've had, destroying that notion of 150 years is kind of what the way it was. So once you destroy, only then you will be able to create something. It's really not about not doing something that we have been doing so well in the past, but having that belief ki isko hata ke let's try and create something new. Maybe we'll take some elements from the new, but we will not go into this journey with the belief that whatever has been doing, whatever we have been doing has been so great that let's continue with it. And by the way, what you have been doing hasn't been that great.
Right.
If it would have been great, we would have had no wars. We would not be worried about everything moving towards the right or to the left. We would not be having the gender bias that we have across the world. We would not be having problems like poverty and the fight over water for the next world war. So as a group, we haven't done a great job. If you want to have a job in the future, let's go and change.
Well, thanks, Sharath. Thanks for disrupting our peace of mind. Thanks for destroying our peace of mind. You can please go ahead. Thank you very much. Of course, you've raised all the top questions. Now it's to the rest of us to figure out the answers and to start with the disruption process. And remember, for brownie points, I started this conversation with saying that I'm going to disrupt a peaceful flow of events. So I'm now calling upon stage the first panel for today is of course technology, right? Potential of the biggest disruptor of things all. And to discuss technology and figure out how you can evolve a university of tomorrow, I call on stage Professor Ravi Shankar, a fellow Tamilian who speaks very fluent Bengali, trapped amongst North Indians in this stage. Ravi did his BTech in electronics from IIT Madras, later on went on to do his PhD and worked with Motorola, Siemens, has led $100 million